last but not least, we have the final module company presenting for today, at least. And we're very happy to have with us Vitor Rodrigues, who's a technical director for the European Union and LATAM for GCL. And
hello, Michael. Morning.
Hi, Vitor.
How are you doing?
All good. You?
Also, thank you.
Wonderful. So I think you have a somewhat different focus than the others, and I think it will be great that you highlight a little bit this topic of traceability and carbon data, especially also with your background on having the advantage of having access simply to fluidized bed reactor silicon, which has a much better carbon footprint. So the floor is yours.
Michael is not allowing me to share. He says that someone is sharing.
Upsala.
Now I can. Now I can. Okay. Just a second. Can you see my PowerPoint?
Yep, just move to presentation mode, then.
Now. Okay.
You're good to go. Perfect.
Thank you so much. So first of all, Michael, thank you so much for this invitation. It's not my first or second time, so it's always a pleasure to be here on this stage. As you mentioned, I bring a slightly different, even if in the end I will touch what is our technology strategy, okay? So we decided from GCL, and as you know, GCL is a fully integrated module manufacturer, so it means that we are also on the upstream part. In fact, GCL 35 years ago started from the upstream to the downstream. And the topic that I would like to bring today is about the traceability, the carbon. So just to give some background why we consider that this should be also an important topic to bring here today. We see from the political part, from new laws, more and more new policies on controlling the carbon emissions. So we have the main markets working on it. As you mentioned, I work in Europe, but also in LATAM. For example, in LATAM, we don't see a big development, but I can tell you that in many projects, the owners already request some traceability on the carbon. But we have new laws in Europe. We know that we will have a directive next year that will also oblige us to be paying much more attention to the carbon emissions. So we have the agreements, the targets, and this is the background why the carbon became so important. But let's be also a little bit clear that when we look on a project level right now, and we have been speaking about ESG in the last years, and putting a little bit apart now the social and the governments that we cannot, but just to focus on our main topic, we know that the part of environmental is also very, very linked to the emissions. And my point here is when we sign contracts to deliver PV modules, even if you don't have any law, any obligation at stake in a certain market, most of the developers or even the owners and the financial institutes start to request more and more traceability. So this means that we manufacturers have also to organize ourselves. We need to be aware of the targets. We need to be aware of the limits. For example, looking to Europe, we see France with a very strict law for importation of PV modules there regarding the carbon emissions. And this was a high impact in a company like GCL since we are integrated. And why the impact is bigger probably on us, and this is also good for the rest of the industry because the GCL is the main provider of silicon. So where we have to act mainly is on the silicon materials. This means that if you are responsible for the upstream and you control your emissions, you will not only help your own company, but the sector itself, because in the end we are selling silicon around 220 gigas of silicon that we produce. And from those 220 gigas equivalent, we are selling around 180, 190. So this will also have an impact on the manufacturers of modules that purchase and access our silicon. So this has to be our focus. It doesn't mean that we don't have to look to the downstream. Of course we have. And that's why we needed to implement a management system. So in this case, we look to the international standards, we look to the requests from the financial institutes, and we look also to the best practices that are in the market And basically, this management system is a total reorganization of what was the structure of GCL. And our big bet is, of course, in low carbon modules. We are discussing a lot of technologies in this floor. We heard TOPCon, we heard back contact, even HJT. I will touch that a little bit, of course, but looking to the silicon-based technologies of cells, doesn't matter if we are speaking about how we passivate and what is the cell type. What is for sure is that we have to be able to control the emissions on the upstream, because it's where you have the biggest impact. So as I mentioned, we are totally integrated. Maybe with the real pictures is a little bit better. So this is basically the same. But as you can see in this slide, I show you real pictures from our facilities where we have since the purification of the silicon to the final module. And this is something that we have to look in the entire chain. But focusing on the silicon materials, we have a difference that we consider is very important for the market, and we can even measure it by the demand we have now. So what I'm introducing now is the FBR silicon. So when we look to the silicon materials, we have basically two ways of the purification. One is the known as Siemens process, and the other is the FBR. So GCL focused in the last 10, 12 years on developing the FBR solution. And I think it was a very interesting bet, because right now, as I told you, we are producing around 220 giga and selling 180, 190 to our main competitors on the modules. Main differences, especially on the energy consumption, I will show you some figures, but mainly on the carbon emissions. And this is also a continuous process. So it's not a process that we need to stop and restart. And this is also helping on the energy consumption. So if we go to real data, maybe I highlight here the power consumption, because by using FBR, we can reduce the power consumption around 76% comparing with the Siemens. And in the end, the carbon emissions are lower in 74%. And this is because of the process, the FBR. So FBR stands for fluidized bed reactor. So this is a very known process in the chemical engineering industry, for example. And with this, we can bring to the market low carbon silicon materials. Okay? But when we work on a contract level, on a project level, we can open our door and you can invite our clients to audit, to visit, to check. But it's also important from our side that we have already some results that we can show to the market. Okay, so what we did was we invited TÜV Rheinland, because when we say TÜV, sometimes there is a mix. There are a lot of TÜVs. In our case, we requested TÜV Rheinland, that is one of the references in the PV world, to do the mapping of our entire chain. So we already have this work done. It doesn't mean that if our clients do request to audit by themselves or with their own third parties, of course we will do. Many times we also have the need to address to our competitors in modules, but that purchase the silicon from us, because they also need the data from carbon from the upstream. So we have the work done and we achieved this result. So we are very happy with the result, because from TÜV Rheinland we became 80% outstanding, 20% common, means there are still work to do, but we are on the right side. This 80% is very good news for us. And if any client, either on the module or either on the silicon materials part, needs the audit report to make sure that we are controlling the emissions, we have it, okay? Looking to the technologies and going a little bit more on the focus that were discussed here today, let me just say one thing first. In GCL, we are not betting on a specific technology. Our philosophy is a little bit that there are markets for different technologies and different applications. So right now we are with a portfolio based on TOPCon, but we are deciding to look to other solutions. For example, we know, and it was mentioned here during the discussion, that the silicon-based technologies are reaching their limit of efficiency. So I show you also what we are looking in GCL. We are looking for other solutions. For example, I will show a little bit more details. But if we speak about news, we are very advanced on the tandem perovskite on the module level approach. So we presented already in Intersolar in Munich and now in SNEC our tandem perovskite modules. So in SNEC we also showed the 29.51% efficiency already on a module level. Okay, and the advantage of also looking on the module level is that we can use for the silicon part any type of cell. We can go with TOPCon, we can go with HAT, we can go with back contact. Right now, our main development are being used TOPCon cells. We have already certified our perovskite single junction module on both of the IC standards by Unveiled, so the 61730 and the 61215 for the single perovskite. And we have a challenge to certify the tandem, and we are working on that because also the IC standards need some adaptations for this kind of technology regarding, for example, the power measurement and so on. And our expectation is that we can bring already modules to the market next year, second half of next year. And just to finalize the update on the tandem, this year we are already delivering for pilot projects modules with efficiencies around 28-30%. So they are being tested in real conditions with some of our clients, some of our partners in some joint ventures to have track record and also comparison between our modules in real conditions with other technologies. But the key message is we are not just looking to one technology. For example, Michael, you made the questions regarding utility, distribution. So for example, we see that the back contact has interest, is a very interesting technology, is not a new one, is around for more than 10 years, but now we have back contact. We consider there is a market, a niche market for this type of technology. We also see it more with applications on rooftops, C&I, and so on. It doesn't mean that it cannot be applied in utility, but from the characteristics of the technology, we are focusing more on the distribution sector. At the same time, and due to what was mentioned already in this floor today, that we have a difference on the bifacial factor and so on, we are also looking to the second generation of the TOPCon. So this is something that we will have from September on this year already. And again, we think that TOPCon 2.0 can be a very interesting technology and solution for the utility sector. We are not limiting. If a client wants to use it in the rooftops, we also have 54 cells modules, 48 cells modules. But our main idea for applications on this case is for utility. And we are very sure that the most demanded module type will be the 66 cells with the rectangular cell, 210 rectangular, so 182 times 210. For the tandem, we are working around 2 square meters modules. So when we speak about efficiencies of 29.51 or 28 or 30, it's basically around these kind of dimensions. As I mentioned, we already presented a module in Intersolar Munich and in SNEC in Shanghai. And we are already setting up a 2 gigawatt capacity manufacturing place near our headquarters in Suzhou in China. Okay? What's the message to link this with the main topic of the carbon emissions? Even the tandem will have the silicon part. Our message is, doesn't matter what is the cell technology, what is the approach, what is the strategy. When we look to the carbon emissions, we want to always guarantee low carbon emissions, at least by taking care of the silicon part. And to finalize, because I'm almost finishing, I would like to leave 2 main ideas or concepts that I think it's also quite interesting and that they are helping us on the carbon emission topic. One is that we have already in Singapore intelligent lines, the cell line. And now that we have done the tests and the things are working perfectly, we will create all of our cells lines and then the module lines also with AI. We also developed AI on the project level, but focusing on the products and on the emissions, this is something that for sure will help to improve our management system, and it will help to improve also the control of the production of our products. These kind of things, even if you have the QV report, need to be transparent and very clear. And the last concept I would like to leave here is that we decided on this concept of zero. So zero for us is everything that is regarding the low emissions, the low carbon emissions, is to be as transparent as possible. So we are putting a QR on each of our modules where you can scan it, and by scanning this QR, you can see first what are the partial carbon emissions, so by activity, and then you can see the overall carbon emissions of the module that you are purchasing. Looking a little bit also on the ESG part, you will get the information of where the materials came from. So the origin of the materials, namely the silicon, that we know that are this forbidden area of the silicon. So we want to make sure that we are transparent when we say where the materials came from. And also, we can give you the information about your product. So the basic things like the data sheets, the manuals, and so on, you can access in this platform by scanning the QR, okay? So this was basically what I had to present today. And if any questions, please, I'm at your service.
Thanks, Vitor. We will have you tomorrow also on the panel, so we save some for then. But
okay.
Just a question. You mentioned also the new technologies. So back contact and perovskite you had at Intersolar, very prominent products on your stand, look very nice. So can you just talk a little bit also on the commercialization schedule? So when can people order these products?
Right now, Michael, and thank you for the question, because the production starting is scheduled for September, both the TOPCon 2.0 and the back contact. So it means that from September 1, we can produce and deliver. So we are already taking orders. So we have the pen files, we have the certified pen files, we have the certifications, IFs, and the relevant certifications. So we are ready to go. On the tandem, let's wait a little bit. Like I told you, we are working on pilot projects. We are delivering modules, but in very specific agreements that we reach with some of our partners. But we expect to deliver second half of next year around 2 GM.
Okay, cool. Wow, that's already a big number. And one thing also about FBR, so you have been making big improvements. You've expanded also capacities. So how is it accepted in the market, especially now that obviously the cost pressure is incredibly high?
What we see, Michael, is that normally the manufacturers use a mix, so different percentages of Siemens and FBR. And because of this carbon pressure, what we see is that the manufacturers are requesting more and more an FBR and are increasing the percentage of FBR and decreasing the Siemens to be able to reduce the emissions. For example, if you want to achieve the market in France with it's not so strict, with the 500 kilos, but it will be more strict. And other markets, you for sure need to mix it. In our case, Michael, maybe just a last idea, we are not using Siemens anymore. All of our production now is 100% FBR.
That will be also for the very high efficiency back contact modules. So you will also use 100%.
We are working on that, yes.
Okay. Wow,
it's a challenge, I know, but we are working on that way.
Okay, very cool. Okay, we talk again in 2 days on the second day during the panel, right?
Thank you so much, Michael. Have a nice evening.
Thanks, Vitor. Great presentation.
Bye-bye.
Cool.